Welcome to the Portland Real Estate Podcast, Oregon and Southwest Washington's #1 show for real estate news and information. Without further ado, here are your hosts and a couple of guys who, as busy realtors and successful brokerage owners, know a thing or two about real estate. Steve Nassar of Premier Property Group and Joe Fistolo of Soldera Properties. Welcome to the Portland Real Estate Podcast and Steve and Joe's Memorial Day weekend plans.
Exactly. That's right. Put in comments what you're doing this weekend. We got a great one today. We got 10 big topics. And with as much as you and I like to talk, to do this in 90 minutes, I think might be challenging, but let's jump into it. What do you think?
I love it. It's good to be back. We've been off for a little while, but we're here. We're loaded with a bunch of conversations and topics, and we're ready to go. So let's kick it off with a little warm-up chat about the state of the real estate market as of May 21st, 2025. We're going to be touching on two posts that come from Masters. One was made by Charles Turner, who always posts the inventory months, usually within minutes of it coming out, I've noticed, right?
Yes. That's kind of his thing.
Yep.
We wait for him to do it, and he's quick about it.
Yep. And so we'll talk about that. We'll unpack that post. And of course, outside of those posts, you and I we'll chat a little bit about what we're seeing and feeling in the market. And then you had a great post April 30th, Joe, where you talked about, are we turning a corner? And you referenced, is it the warmer weather? Is it people getting used to 7% rates? Is it the tariff talks getting old? Is it the stock market doing better? What's everybody feeling? So why don't you kick it off, Joe? Talk about your post and what you're seeing, feeling, and hearing.
So I posted that for kind of engagement and collaboration from everybody. I think across all the real estate companies in the Portland, Washington area, and again, it depends specifically who you talk to, but I think for the majority, it wasn't like a strong first quarter, right?
No, it was not.
In the contributing,
or half of the second quarter.
Yeah, and the contributing factors are when you have a volatile economy, people like shelter in place. It's like, I'm not doing anything. And so coming off of an election year, which was decided at the end of the year, but Trump's installation, January 20th, you have the stock markets that took a dive, interest rates are 7%, and we're starting to see more inventory. I mean, we hit 3.7 absorption rate. And I think like an absorption rate of 4 months is about it's not a seller's market, it's not a buyer's market, like around 3.9. And not a lot happening. Listings were easy to get, but you had to service them forever. And we kind of turned a corner just for a moment, and we had good weather and everybody was out and a lot of things went pending. And it seems like we kind of stalled again since then. What are you seeing?
Absolutely. Okay, so let me turn something off real quick.
Sure. The other thing is,
I've got a little bell in my office that lets me know when somebody comes in the front door, and we don't need that during the show. Go ahead. You were saying the other thing.
The one consistent thing is, so I'm talking about residential real estate. I think the condo, townhome, anything HOA involved that isn't a detached home, but condo or townhome, that market's still kind of getting hit hard. Lots of inventory.
Especially the downtown core, right?
Well, downtown, Forest Heights, just anywhere, condo. And it's because of the Florida weather and what's happening in Texas. Insurance companies are getting hit hard, and HOAs are going up, and it's harder to insure. And so when I'm talking about we found a little bit improvement in our market, I'm talking about detached homes. The condo and townhome market is still on the slow side.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and I couldn't agree more on that. Okay, so coming into this year, right after the election, I think we all felt a pop of activity. It felt like there was some general optimism as far as the trajectory of rates. You know, just things seem to be moving in a healthy direction, and I personally felt a good, better than expected November, December of last year. January was decent. Then after the inauguration, a lot of noise just started happening in the media. And it was deafeningly loud. It was everything about tariffs. It was things are changing in a very dramatic way. Are we heading towards a recession? Are people going to get laid off? At the same time, you had the Fed say vocally, we are no longer lowering rates because we think there could be inflation as a result of some of these policy changes. And so the market just about froze to some extent, including heading into the spring. I've heard it. I've used the expression. I've heard others use it as well. You know, we're coming into 3 years now in this challenged market where we've been, in a higher rate environment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and most of those 3 years have been, you could categorize them as a market of fits and starts, right? There'll be a pop of activity, there'll be a bunch of transactions, there'll be a bunch of buyer demand, and then it'll kind of lock up again. And then, a while will go by, and then you'll kind of get a little bit more of that. I've jokingly been saying this spring has been just the fits without the starts. There's just been a locked up market. The spring housing season has been just a gigantic dud. Um, we came out of the winter, and normally somewhere in February, March, April, May, we'll have a big month, at least one, maybe a
Yeah,
couple, like
sure.
just a boom of activity. It has not happened. It has not happened. Every month has been a grind. Every month has been a mountain to climb of, just trying to get deals into escrow. There's been a lot of people, unlike anything I've seen, making offers on houses and then immediately pulling them back. Immediately. No inspections. Now, to be fair, we've had ones where there was inspections as also in the mix, and maybe that was a little bit of it. Maybe it was the market, maybe it was the economy. Who knows? But I had a listing on Lad Hill Road. Actually, it's the one. Joe, you remember when we went to Duke's and we went for
Yeah,
the Real Producers event, and I
yeah,
told you I just zipped there. I showed up late because I'd come from a listing appointment in
right.
Sherwood. And
Yeah.
you asked me, you're like, did you get it? And I said, well, I'm competing with a couple agents. Let me work on it. And I ended up, after a couple weeks of going back and forth with them, I ended up getting it. It's the one I'm talking about. It was 13 acres, nice house, listed about 1.7 in Sherwood on a creek, beautiful setting. Um, you kind of go off Wilsonville Road to Lad Hill Road, and it's just down, it's north up there a little
So
bit.
we've hang on one sec. We've been to Duke's twice for Real Producers, and I can't remember if it was the first time or the second
It was
time.
just recently. It was just recently.
Oh, okay. So you've had it for
It was
a
in
couple months.
February. It was in
Okay.
February. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah. Yeah. So we took it on the market. Opening weekend, we get 3 offers. Okay.
Oh, wow.
We're elated. Sellers are elated. This does not feel like the market that we've been in. So we're excited, to finally see some quick traction. I kid you not, day 2, we accepted offer 1. We took second best offer, put it in backup, and kind of told third people, hey, thanks for making offer, but we think we're good. We think we're good. First offer bogues. They immediately pull out within hours. And they had some cockamamie reason, like,
Sure.
it wasn't the right fit or whatever. So then we take best offer 2, put it into first position, and take coddle 3 and bring them back into the mix and put them into backup. Same freaking thing the next day or within a couple days. By this point, our sellers are spooked. Rightfully so. They're like, what? I mean, even though, thank goodness, we had 3 offers, right?
Right.
And but at this point they're like, what's real, what's not real? Is this third offer real? Is it about to do the same thing? Do they know that the other two don't want the house? And if they do, what are they thinking? I mean, it was a dicey situation, and it's just been the state of the market. Everybody's just nervous Nellies, and they're indecisive, and they're, should I, shouldn't I, what's on the news tonight, maybe, oh maybe. And you've had things like all the Doge talk, which
Yeah.
I've heard smart people in our industry question, maybe not today, but 2 months ago, 3 months ago, people are questioning, like, okay, there's a lot of talk about inefficiencies in government and chainsaws and getting rid of cost in government. Is that mentality going to spill over into the private sector? Is Nike going to start doing that? Is Intel, and by the way, Nike and Intel have their own independent issues that we could do a whole podcast about in our market,
Oh
right?
yeah.
But are big corporations going to start doing that? Is the state of Oregon going to start doing that? Is there a new mentality out there of austerity, of cutting costs? So everybody was just nervous about, their jobs, their prospects, their whether to make a big ticket item purchase. And that has been this year. That has been
100%.
up until this point
100%.
this year. Now,
Everything matters, everything, and it starts with government. And I have a saying I like to say is, no one's really worried about the drip underneath the kitchen sink when your living room's on fire, right? And so when you talk about, you know, January 20th, he's installed, comes out hot. I mean, I've never seen a president come out as hot as he came with tariff talks and shutting down everything outside the United States, coupled with, our absorption rate, our interest rate, everything else. And
yep.
no, just like you have to deal with the biggest problem at hand, which is probably the fire in the living room, not the drippy faucet. Well, nobody wants to make their largest material asset a big purchase or big sale when our economy is so volatile. And you'll see an offer on a property, 3 days later there'll be some announcement that the government made, and then people will back out of an offer based on new information that they hear from the news. And it's very much a part of, people have to feel warm and fuzzy and have a nice warm blanket around them, that everything's even keel and there's going to be no big changes. Because when it's a rocky economy and it's constantly changing, people shelter in place. They don't make any financial decisions whatsoever. And you got to think of it how it relates to real estate. If somebody's stock, when it tanked, and their stock is worth one third of it what it once was in just a short period of time, these 2 and 3 and 4 and $5 million purchasers aren't going to sell their stock at a huge loss to go
And
buy
that's where
something
their
for
money is.
cash.
That's where their cash is. When
Yep,
somebody says they're buying cash, very rarely is that sitting in a bank account or money
it's
market
not in
account.
their
That
mattress.
is in
Yeah,
an equities account. That's in a mutual fund. That's in some kind of high return, in place,
totally.
equity. And so when the stock market craters, that hits the high end really hard. Now, I would argue that the lower end market is more mortgage rate based. And
Correct.
so when
Yeah,
mortgage rates dip, the lower end does better, but when the stock market dips, the high end gets hit hard. And we and
absolutely.
and and we were seeing a situation where both were not doing great, right? I mean, we've, rates at one point recently, I forget if it's 6 months ago, they got into the low sixes, but they've been hovering around seven or high sixes for quite some time now. And you make a good point too, Joe. People lock up when there's uncertainty. They locked up. They lock up. Well, guess what? People have been locked up for a while, and they're used to being locked up because
Hmm.
of the rate difference between what they have on their house now and what they can get now. So people are pretty comfortable being locked up. So
Yeah,
as after the election, when people are like, well, okay, maybe it's been 3 years, we've needed that extra bedroom, or we've wanted to be on the other side of town for a while. I know it means getting rid of my 3% mortgage and taking on a 6.5% mortgage, but maybe this is the year to do it. Well, then January 20th happens, and all the noise, guess what? They go back into their cocoon. They're like, no, 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 no.
Right.
I liked it in that cocoon. It was warm and snug and safe, and let's go back in there. And that's just, I think that's what we really saw. The cool thing about noise that I think we can all appreciate is when noise is new, it's really distracting. Like if you and I were sitting here and all of a sudden a siren started going off like a car alarm in the background for about a minute or two, we're gonna do pretty much nothing else but pay attention to that car alarm.
Right.
If
Right.
5-10 minutes go by or 15, heaven forbid, at some point you drown it out and you move on, right?
Right. Right.
So there's a little of that going on now that we're 4 months into it. And to be fair, I would also say the noise has quieted. You've got your pause with the tariffs on China for 90 days at least,
Sure.
which gives, I think, a lot of optimism that, okay, maybe they'll figure stuff out. It won't be as bad as we thought it would. You've got a lot of other things. You've got the stock market back to where it was and doing better. You've got Elon Musk, who is creating a big whoop-de-doo in Washington, back to work, trying to fix Tesla and all the
Right.
other stuff he does. So there is a little bit of normalcy returning. I finally feel like, knock on wood, and I've been wrong before. There was a time in April where I was like, hey, maybe we're going to have a really good May on my team. Well, we didn't. It's okay. I hear mid-May, or we're on the 21st of May. It feels like we could be having a good June finally. I've heard other people say this, Joe, and I think you'll agree. We make our money this time of year. We
Right.
we have to stock away nuts for the wintertime at some point, right? We
Right.
all
Yeah.
know in this business that you're not selling December and January like you are May, June, July, right? So when I say we aren't having these good months, like you start to get nervous. Like, hey, okay, where are we going to make our money this year, right? These are the stretches where that historically happens. So it seeming like we could be having a good June finally. We're seeing some stuff move, but it's still not great. It's still a little bit sluggish. What do you think? I mean,
I do. Thinking about trying to make a productive year, I think we kind of need to cherry pick what we go after. Condos and townhomes probably isn't the one you want to go after because you're going to have to service them forever. They may not sell. The seller may not be willing to let it go for what market value is today. And other properties, funky layouts, properties where they were doing an addition and they kind of stopped halfway through. It's the really tricky, really tough ones um, are going to kill you. But if you get a sexy house in a great location, priced competitively, it is still a good market for good listings. And you know what we always say, in all markets, you can't hide a good listing. And you have it and it's priced accordingly and it's a great house and it appeals to the masses, right? For example, one level houses everyone can live in, but not everyone can live in a tri-level house. Fat people and handicapped people and old people. But a ranch, they can all move into, as well as a young, able bodied family, right? So I think it's sort of picking. The more expensive you go, the more difficult it is, I believe, today. And especially those way out with acreage. I think you're going to have a lot of trouble. Anything condo, anything townhome, anything downtown. Um,
Multnomah County, high end
Multnomah County
Multnomah
is,
County is so tough. It's so
yeah,
tough. I had a listing appointment recently. It's beautiful, beautiful neighborhood off Skyline. It's listed with us now. We've got it at 165. I think we're a little overpriced because of this. What I've noticed is Multnomah County has not appreciated like Washington and Clackamas County. So all apples to apples, if somebody bought in 2019 at $1 million in Clackamas County or Washington County, and somebody bought $1 million in Multnomah County, they're not worth the same today. They're not, the appreciation is not
Correct.
there. The inventory is there's a lot more inventory in Multnomah County in the high end, especially the high end, because people with money in Multnomah County are voting with their feet and saying, get me out of here. I'm tired of the high property taxes. I'm tired of the high taxes in general for the pre-K, for the homeless tax.
Yeah. Not to
Multnomah
mention the
County,
homeless
the homeless
in their
tax
neighborhood.
that gets
And
them, yeah. So you've got a county. Did you know that Multnomah County has the second highest taxes in the nation, next to New York?
I read that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got high income earners, more so than anywhere else. What Multnomah County has done over the last few years is they've realized there are more voters who aren't high income than there are that are high income. So they can keep passing these bills that say, don't worry, most of you will not be impacted by this. Only the people making over 200 or 150 or 250, whatever, they're the only ones that are going to pay this. So all the people making under that, which is the masses, voted in. Well, guess what? Who's paying it? So they are saying, get me out of here. Take me to another county where they're not ganging up on us. And that is really hurting the high dollar luxury homes in Multnomah County. They still move. What I've observed and what I'm telling my clients is they still move, but they have to be compelling. And a lot of times they're moving to people from out of the area. They're moving, people from the Bay Area. They're used to some of that chaotic,
There's actually a pretty good segue of Multnomah County and the SDC
yeah, let's go
moratorium.
into that. That's great.
It's kind of been a long time coming, Steve. If you go back to when all the COVID and the riots and stuff, with our leadership with Wheeler and Brown and people getting taxed in Multnomah County, everywhere you turn, there's a tax, and the money isn't spent appropriately. There's a point where people just say, okay, I'm not going to ride. I'm not buying a ticket on the Titanic. I'm just not even going to get on that ship. I'm going to Clackamas County, Washington County, Clark County. It's like, this thing is a dumpster fire and it's your dumpster fire. I'm getting the hell out. And so part of this problem with all of the homeless. So we got Kotek, who this is a post. I should probably start with that. May 1st from Charles Turner, and it says the SDC moratorium, and that's system development charges for all of our listeners, would last for 3 years or until 5,000 housing units have been built, whichever comes first. Kotek described the proposal as a necessary step to tackle an urgent problem, and Wilson noted that the city has 400 units in the permitting queue, but only 800 in active production this year. I mean, what do you think about waiving the SDC?
I think it's a great move. There's a lot of comments on this post basically saying, and I think most will agree, hey, it's something. But they're saying this, there's a lot of great comments that are saying this is not going to fix it all by itself. For example, Zach Nolan said, it's not enough. The fees waived still don't make sense for builders to put up with the wait for permits. It takes longer to get plans approved than it takes to build the entire project. That's insane. You and I talked about this a little off the air, Joe. I mean, these builders have carrying costs. They have hard money costs. They're borrowing money to build these houses. They can't. So if their money's tied up on this project and it's just dead for 6 months while they're trying to get permits, even if those permits are now or those costs are lower, there's still a big issue there. But
there's a million. It all depends on net, right? It all depends on your percentage of profit, and so they got rid of some of the BS SDC, but a builder has carrying costs, and Multnomah County doesn't do anything fast, first and foremost. You have all the other costs. Then you have the red tape of all of the BS everybody has to go through because, they're making out for zoning, transportation, utilities. And then, the SDC cost goes towards parks and schools and infrastructure. And it is valuable, but it has gotten so heavily loaded onto builders that it's becoming cost prohibitive. And then you have the rising costs of building materials. I mean, when the tariff talk happened, lumber just went up 25% like overnight
Mhm.
after, this was a couple months ago. I don't know if it's since readjusted, but it's really, really difficult. And I think the two hardest places to build right now, number one, Multnomah County, and then number two, Lake Oswego. And I don't think this is going to move the needle because the SDC costs, according to the article, could be 15 grand to 50 grand. And they say it could be 6% of the entire project's budget, according to the article. Whether that's reality or not, who knows?
Mhm.
And so there's a progression that I think happened. And this is why I don't think it'll work because the city um, thinks of new BS and fees and they pass it to the builder. And the builder's like, man, now I have all these added costs. The builder passes it to the buyer. And then the buyer's like, man, I don't think I want to buy that house.
Yeah.
So market value steps in, and there's a point where the city can't create it, the builder can't push it to the buyer, and the buyer isn't willing just to say, okay, you got me, I'm going to eat it. It's gotten to the point that are like, screw it, I'm going to Clackamas County, I'm going to Washington County, I'm going to Clark County. I am not going to be part of this mess.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I
And
don't
I've
think
seen it
I don't think it's enough
firsthand.
money. It's not enough money. I mean, if I was a builder and it's like, hey, would you build in Multnomah County? We'll make it a little bit more attractive by getting rid of some of these things. It's still a hard no for me
Mhm. Mhm.
if I were a builder.
I saw it firsthand. I worked with a builder, and they built two townhomes in a rougher part of like off Johnson Creek Boulevard, southeast Portland. But they were trying to make affordable housing. He actually was a hard money lender who foreclosed on this project. Like somebody else had started it, and he just
Yeah,
said, "I'm going to build a couple townhomes here." I I'm not even going to try to disseminate what happened over the course of 3 years that he tried to build these townhomes because I wouldn't do the story justice. But
right.
I will tell you that we ended up selling those townhomes for somewhere in the fours, and I think he was in each one 650. By the time they made him put
Yeah,
sidewalks in, sewer issues, and all of the delays, and the delays. Tasha Gamroth does a really good job here of talking about this. She says, the temporary drop in prices won't offset the fact that many people and multiple builders I know are just fed up and done with the city, the red tape, the exorbitant costs, lengthy delays, difficult getting any kind of help, decreased hours, people not working from the people working from home, short staffing. Um, it just goes on and on and on. And the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing at the city. You never talk to the same person twice. You talk to someone, and everyone's kind of just kicking the buck around like, oh, you got to go talk to that person. That person says you got to talk to this person. It's just a disaster trying to get stuff done. All the builders we know, Joe, don't want to do it. Randy Sebastian pulled out of there, Renaissance Homes. He will
yeah,
not touch Portland. He will not touch Multnomah County. Now, does this change it? Maybe. I don't know. I applaud the action. And and good thing kudos to both the governor who's backing this
yeah.
and the mayor. Like they're trying stuff. I don't know if this is enough, but it is something. And I encourage them to keep going in this department and keep trying to do things in this regards. They need to listen to the developers. There's more to be done. There's more to be done is the consensus on this one.
And
Let's move
there's
on.
one thing, and Tasha's really smart. She's been around forever. I love her, and what she said is great. There's one thing that we missed that is a factor that I think we should state, and that is the Multnomah County tenant rights have not changed. And
Yeah.
nobody's buying a rental in Multnomah County because of, this cash for keys. So you have someone in your rental and you say it's a year contract and you go month to month. So you're through your year and they've been going month to month for 3 months. If you want to get them out, you might have to be paying them $4,700 a head, to pay for their moving costs to get them out, even though the contract's over with and they're just month to month.
Mm-hmm.
It's nobody wants a rental in Multnomah County for the rental laws, then homeless, art tax, TriMet tax, income tax, all the other stuff that Tasha and you said.
Yep.
So it's really not going to be a county that's going to flourish here in the short term.
Yeah. Let's go into the next one we were going to talk about, Joe.
Okay.
I'll tee this one up and you chat about it, because I think you're a little bit more experienced on this one. When selling this was Sarah Jane, by the way. Oh, and I was going to do one other thing before we move on, Joe. You did have a comment on your wall, actually, that
Okay.
I was going to acknowledge. Let's see here.
Here, I'll read the poll in the meantime.
Okay.
So Sarah Jane created a poll on May 15th. When selling in an HOA, how often do you recommend your buyer contact an HOA consultant to review / analyze your HOA docs during a sale? And then the poll questions were, or answers were, always, sometimes, I, the agent, review them myself, never, I just forward them to the buyer, or always with condos. And everybody, the majority, almost 60%, said, I always recommend it. And I have sort of you should recommend it. So, what a lot of realtors don't know is that is not our job to read 400 pages of bylaws, CC&Rs, the budget, the minutes. That is not our job. We are not qualified to do that. A big thing we do at my company is we tell everybody to stay in your lane. And we're not stagers, we're not designers, we're not attorneys, we're not qualified HOA analysts. There's a million things we're not. What we are is a realtor, and what we want to do is provide all the information relevant to our clients, and we also want to cover our ass. So, anytime there is an HOA, we do forward it. Of course, the buyer has to have it in their possession. They're welcome to read as much or as little or none of it if they choose. And then we recommend, like one of the companies out there is CIDA. Their entire job is to review all the HOA stuff, minutes, financials, and things, and they give it a score. Hey, we score this as a 95%. And what they're really looking for is the buoyancy, the health of the HOA. Do they have a special assessment coming down the pike? Are they going to raise their HOAs substantially, overnight, or both? And they do it kind of looking at the maintenance history of what's been done and the maintenance schedule of what has yet to be done and how their budget looks, and if they have the money to cover that. And if it's a HOA that put on a new roof and got new paint and got in new windows and did all the things, they may not have a lot of money financially, but there isn't anything in the foreseeable future that they're going to have to do. And it is them that analyzes it. So I 100% recommend that the buyers do that. Right? And regardless if they do it or don't do it, then you document. I've recommended this, especially if they don't want to do it. It's like you'll have an addendum and it says, against selling, brokers explicit advice, buyers opting not to hire a HOA review company to review the HOA. Because just like kind of like when you get those home warranties on a house and there's always something that pops up that first year, whenever you sell a condo, townhome, or something in an HOA in a big complex like that, There's always something that happens. And when that happens, you get that phone call. And if it's something substantial, then people's hackles go up and everybody wants to sue everybody. And if you have a piece of paper that says, hey, look, I recommended that you get this analyzed and you didn't want to, and here's your signature on the piece of paper stating that exactly. And it's the same thing I do for people like contractors or builders who buy a house, and it's like, okay, well, you have the right to a sewer scope and a whole home inspection and radon and all these other things. And it's like, no, we don't need to do any of that. Well, guess what? We go into our folder and say, okay, well, here, I'm going to give you this to sign that against my explicit advice and my recommendation that you should have all these things, you're opting not to, and you hold me harmless and sign it right here. Because years down the road, if or when it bites them in the butt, they don't care who pays. They want someone to pay. I'm going to go after the seller for non-disclosure. I'm going to go after the listing agent company or the listing agent or the seller or the selling agent or their company or insurance. They don't care who pays. They just want someone to pay other than themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have that shield of, is this your autograph right here that I've given you all this information and highly recommended you have an inspection or have, the HOA analyzed, and you chose not to because you wanted to save the $800? That's on you, buddy, not me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Absolutely.
so I
Most of
100%
the
recommend it.
issues I see in transactions that have, where they've gotten where buyers have gotten cranky, not necessarily even on my deals, but it has happened on mine, is with some kind of special assessment, some kind of HOA situation where they feel like they were duped, that they buy the place and all of a sudden there's a major component to it. So what I can't stress enough to people that are buying into an HOA, especially when the HOA is maintaining structures, right? Like, condo buildings, like
Yeah.
walls, roofs. Um, Less so when it's like a mountain park type HOA with common areas and, common amenities, but still to some extent, you are you need to examine that HOA every bit as much as you would examine the structure in a normal inspection. You need to read, years of minutes for the meetings, and you need to just pay a lot of attention. And if you don't do that and that's not your thing, you should get an expert that can help you with that. Absolutely. Absolutely. And
So,
even then, you're still rolling the dice a little bit, right?
and I actually wrote an article about this. You're just kind of reminding me now. It was in the Real Producers magazines. It was like a couple of years ago or something. And in short, it doesn't matter how the condo's priced, how awesome the location is, how fabulous the remodel is. If the HOA itself isn't healthy, run away, right? And that's what the article said in short. And too many people are like, "Oh my God, it's there's a coffee shop down there and groceries right over here," and they're worried about location and price and condition. But if you're buying a ticket to the Titanic and you're going to have a $30,000 special assessment attached to it, to you as the new owner, or they double your HOA, or both, you need to know that. And too many people screw up in any big purchase because they cheap out and they don't want to pay a little bit of money to find out absolutely everything they can about a property. Either financially with the HOA or an inspection. And it always comes to bite them,
Mm-hmm.
always.
And
And
back to your point earlier, this is part of the challenge with the condo market. This right here is a large portion of why that market is challenged. It's depressed. It's not doing as well, and it's not as robust as the detached market, because word is out there that a lot of them have these special assessments. And even if they've done everything right with their managing their money and doing things, just as the years go by, those places need stuff, and there's not always, either you hike up the monthly HOA due so that you do have the reserves, or you keep it low and then you have special assessments. It's hard to, toe both lines, right?
100%. And the insurance companies are getting hit hard with the, disasters in, Florida and Texas. And quite frankly, insurance companies don't want to insure everybody. They really don't. They want to cherry pick themselves, which I think that's a different topic, actually, that we're
Yeah,
getting to.
let's go on to the one here about I think I
Bumpable
have,
buyer.
yeah, yes.
Okay.
It was posted by Elisa Buckley on April 24th. It said,
Yep.
scenario in question: seller is accepting a contingent offer, so status will be bumpable. Zillow shows bumpable buyer. Redfin shows active with bumpable contingency. Realtor.com shows contingent. Question: would you do an open house this weekend? And if so, what would that even show up on Zillow or Redfin? And she answers that question herself. She says, yes, it does. By the way. Second question: would you update public remarks to indicate what bumpable means? 99% of buyers have no idea. ChatGPT suggests adding this statement to the public remarks. Accepted offer as a contingency. This means this home is still available for showings and offers are welcome. Okay. So I'll take this one out of the gate, Joe. And by the way,
Sure.
our buddy Brian Belair's has some great comments here that I echo.
Yeah.
And my first thing is, first of all, Elisa, these are great and valid questions, but a more important first question is, why did you accept this bumpable offer if now your agenda and objective is, excuse me for being frank, but to screw them over, to, to aggressively bump them, right? Like
Yes.
generally, I think there's some goodwill, hopefully, when you get a bumpable offer that you believe they have the best of intentions of selling their house and that it's a sellable house, at least more sellable than yours. That's, I think, rule number one in accepting a bumpable offer, contingent
Sure.
offer is their home better be easier to sell than your home, or what are you doing, right?
If that's the contingency, a bumpable could be anything, subject to my Uncle Jerry coming from California, who's a builder, to look at it, or
Sure. I
subject to.
see that a lot less frequently. I don't think I've ever seen a bumpable that wasn't a contingent to sell, but I guess you're correct. It could be anything.
Hmm.
Um, but so I guess my first question is like, it doesn't feel good if I'm the buyer on that house and you accepted my offer and you're giving us 30 days to get our house into escrow. For example, 30 days, and we're bumpable, as you know, we're bumpable immediately. It doesn't feel great if all of a sudden I see that you're doing 2 open houses every weekend and you're changing the comments to say, hey, come bump this guy. High five if you do. That doesn't feel good. It feels like we should be in a little bit of a partnership where you're rooting for me and my people. And I'm not saying you're not trying to sell the house. That's not what I'm saying. But maybe some of these levers you're pulling are a little aggressive and could off put us a little bit and make us not feel so good about working with you. Um,
And
Now I have had
yeah,
situations, and I've seen
understood.
situations where a bumpable offer comes together, and for whatever reason, the dynamic does change. The people who are trying to sell their house maybe aren't lowering their price. They're not doing things that look like they're aggressively trying to sell their house. And so maybe the dynamic changes, and yes, there is a loss of goodwill, and maybe you do get a little bit more aggressive. And that's where I could see this coming into play. But hopefully it's not from the get-go, and hopefully that would be my thoughts on that. What do you think, Joe? And Brian Belair's and Rob Levy, I think, too. Yeah, because Rob Levy said Brian 100%. So there's some great minds and masters in real estate who are, that's what they're saying as well, I think.
Well, so there's a lot of things going on, and I come from a completely different angle here. So I'll just kind of describe to our listeners what's happening. First of all, whether you accept a bumpable offer really largely depends on the market. Okay. If you're in a hot market, you don't do it. But point number two, um, Elisa is saying the general public doesn't necessarily know what stuff means, and should we explicitly spell it out? I agree. I hate it when people talk in acronyms because not everyone knows what you're talking about. So when it's bumpable or contingent, to put something at the end of it for the buyers to say, hey, we accepted an offer, but some milestone has to happen before this is a real thing. And come look at it, and we're accepting offers. And if it's better, we'll kick them to the curb and take you, in so many words. So I do think that is important for the buyers to know. But what it sounds like is someone accepted a bumpable offer that didn't have any teeth. And then now they're just like, okay, we're going to have open houses, and we're going to market it, and we're going to encourage people to come show buyers. So if I recommend to my clients to accept a contingent offer, that is going to have teeth. It's going to, first of all, I got to know if it's them selling a house. Is it pending? Is it pending and they already made it through inspection periods? Has there been an appraisal? That is substantially different than somebody who's not yet on the market, that they're planning to get on the market in 2 weeks, and they don't know the price, and you have to go look at it to make sure it's sellable. So what I tell people is, look, we'll entertain a contingent offer if the offer benefits both sides, not just you tying up our property where we have to wait literally for your house to get on the market, get shown, go pending, have an inspection, potentially an appraisal, then close before ours even has a shot at closing. So I'm like, okay, you order all of your inspections immediately on day one. And then when your inspections period is over in the first 7 days, we have some hard money go down. And then um, when they have an appraisal on their home, on this particular home, we have them order that. And once the appraisal is good, we have more hard money. And the idea is the seller shouldn't suffer for you to screw around and try and sell your house. We're going to make you put your money where your mouth is, and you're banking on your house selling, not necessarily my sellers. Because, and the buyers have ample time to close, and they can adjust the closing rate. So in short, we say, hey, look, we understand you need to sell something, but guess what? Let's structure it in such a way that we will take our home off the market for you. We will take our home off the market for you. The offer's got to be great. We need your inspections and appraisal done immediately, and we need some hard money. And then you can pick the closing date 3-4 months down the road. And after 3-4 months, one of two things happen, and both are okay. Your sellers are successful sellers with a great price because of the terms of this contingency, or your sellers have this 50 grand, whatever the non-refundable money is. So they just received $50,000, which is their, 3 years of house payments or however many years. There's no loss. They get 50 grand, or they're successful sellers, and it keeps those people on point. It keeps them reducing their price and getting competitive because they don't want to be out that money. And that's how I write it. But
I
if
like
I'm
it that
like,
way
oh,
too.
hey, we accept a contingent offer, and you have no skin in the game, then it feels like you're really trying to find someone a little bit stronger than them to boot them to be your next buyer.
Yeah.
And it's all how it's written, 100%
Hmm.
how it's written.
Yeah, I love that strategy, Joe. I use that a lot myself. Yep. Yeah. So great topic. Hey, we have some comments here. I want to read some comments. They're actually on your wall, Joe.
Okay,
I think because we went live on your wall, that's where people have gravitated to.
sure.
'Cause most of your friends are also masters. This is Molly Makem. This is exactly what happened in 2008. Let your sellers know, don't swing for the fence. Sometimes it's just about getting on base. I think that was earlier in our conversation talking about the market. Deb Counts Tabor, FYI, I'm fat and my partner is disabled and we love our tri-level. I don't remember what we said that pertains to.
It was me.
What did you say?
I said a ranch style is most appealing to everybody because, you know, you could be obese, elderly, handicapped, or able-bodied. However, something with lots of stairs,
Well,
it's not the ideal property
she's
that obese,
she's
elderly,
got
and
a couple
handicapped
laughy
people.
faces too. John Sanford said totally nailed it on the issues with Multnomah County taxes and the higher end buyer. Also on the permitting and zoning issues and carrying costs while waiting. Although I did get approval in 2 months recently, so it can happen. That's positive. And then Zach Duncan, great conversation, fellas. Love seeing your smiling faces. So awesome. Okay, let's move
Great
on
comment.
from that one, Joe, from
Okay.
the contingent buyer, and let's go on to the insurance one. Okay. I will
Okay.
read this one. This was posted by Dill Ward. She's been on the show as a guest in not so distant past. Insurance company requested a copy of home inspection. They came back and said knob and tube wiring had to be replaced within 30 days. Interesting evolution of third party involvement. I actually have a story of something like this going on right now. Go ahead, Joe. Why don't you talk about this?
I'm not a fan of more and more people jumping on the in the midst of a real estate transaction bandwagon. The insurance should vet this out with their current insured policyholders, which are the sellers of this home. You don't use the sale of a home to say, hey, you know, send us the inspection report. It's another red flag. And it's climbing a mountain to get something to the finish line in and of itself. I mean, think about everybody else who piled on. We have, you know, is the wood burning insert, you know, one of them that is rated that you could leave it there, or do you have to get rid of it and have it destroyed? We now have to have smoke detectors and CO detectors. And, you know, if you have radon or something like that, it's kind of a fix before closing type of deal, or an underground oil tank or a sewer line. And it's like the more stuff you have to do before closing, the more wrenches that are thrown in the works. And I'm not a fan of it. I understand why insurance companies do it for their bottom line, but you give an inspection report to an insurance company or a lender or an appraiser, you're just asking for the thing to blow up and have a million conditions. And so I don't like it. I understand why they do it, but I don't like it.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't had a lot of experience with the insurance companies asking for the inspection report, but apparently it's happening. Um, they, they're definitely something is changing in the insurance world as it pertains to home ownership in this country in a massive way, and I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to understand why. I mean, with the wildfires and the hurricanes and just increased um, filing of claims, these
Yeah.
for-profit companies are raising rates and they're scrutinizing and they're getting more aggressive and they're denying people insurance in general. I've heard I've heard stories in near like Forest Park in Northwest Portland where things are getting a little bit dicey in that area, and insurance companies are getting nervous about being close to large areas that could be prone to wildfire. I have a listing right now, and this was mentioned in here. They talked about piping. Several of the comments in here talked, in addition to talking about knob and tube, they talk about pipes. I have a listing right now that they just did some inspections, and we had. Have you ever heard, Joe, of CPVC pipes? It's like a
Yeah.
pipe that was done in the 90s that
From mobile homes had them back in the 90s,
this is a
and
multi-million dollar.
polypropylene pipes, and
They're brittle. I think they're brittle and they
it
can.
releases plastic flakes. So if you are drinking that water, you're poisoning yourself,
I
basically.
don't. I was told that they're brittle, and if they're close to like a washing machine and they're moving, they can crack and you have a leak.
Yeah, that
And
too.
we actually called, we didn't call on the property, but we called State Farm in general just to ask what their take is on that piping. And they informed us that they don't like it and they wouldn't insure it. So there's definitely a a growing movement with insurance to be very picky with properties in every way, right? And so yeah, this is definitely a thing. This is definitely a thing. There was a couple insurance agents that jumped in here and talked about these realities and so on and so
Well,
forth.
insurance companies make money on insuring people that don't file claims.
Yeah.
It's like a lender. Lenders give money to people who don't desperately need the money, right? You have
Yeah.
to have
Yeah.
lots of assets and great credit, um, I understand from the insurance standpoint. What I don't love from our profession is everybody's piling on in the midst of a real estate transaction, things that have to be done prior to closing. Health and safety, I completely understand. Oil tanks, sewer lines, radon, smoke detectors, CO detectors. I just, I don't love it. Can't all the entities who do that before you go on the market and be good with it? And
Hmm.
I'm not
Yeah.
a fan of doing repairs prior to closing. I'm a fan of getting a bid for what it costs and credit the buyers to do it with whomever they choose, whenever they choose. I try and streamline the closing process. And as long as the
Yep.
money's there to do it, who cares?
Yep. Yep. Let's go to the next one, Joe. Jesse
Okay.
Dow posted April 27th. This one got a lot of comments, 34 comments. If a seller is going to net the same, why does anyone care about the BAC or closing costs? In this new world of how we change the color of money, some agents are doing a bang up job coaching their clients on the net sales price. You want to kick that one off, Joe?
Yeah. Well,
It's kind of,
Jesse is assuming that the sellers are focusing on a net, and not everybody does. Some sellers have blinders on, and all they care about is what your commission is, what the commission for the selling agent is, what their price is. It's never high enough. They're going to like stop check you at every step along the way. If they were intelligent, and somebody mentioned, as Angela Martin, I think, said, who cares if your commission is, two or three times what's competitive? I think she did give a percentage, which probably is against antitrust, but who cares if you have super high uh, commission if you're netting them 50 grand more, right? And it's kind of like people get in this little vortex, and it's like they go and buy a new car, and they don't like the price of the new car, but they're doing a trade in, but they're getting a great price on their trade in. And it's just, let's just look at what they're giving you for your car and what they're selling the car for you. You blend it together, and is the net result something that makes sense? And so this would all be easy if sellers realized that it's all about your net proceeds. And I should hope that listing agents are explaining the NAR changes to their clients. And it's not just somebody who is trying to get the listing and they lower their commission and they don't like explain how it all works. And the seller's kind of thinking, oh, okay, I'm only responsible for the listing side. Well, there's one thing that evens the playing field, and that is our market. If you're on the market and you owe your listing agent a commission and you do not plan on paying the realtor bringing the buyer, well, guess what? That realtor is protected because he has a buyer, or she has a buyer uh, representation agreement with those buyers. But if it gets kicked back to them and the buyer says, okay, well, we're trying to buy the house and we got to pay our broker whatever we agreed on this buyer rep agreement, well, guess what? The price that we're offering is going to change. So it's sort of the same thing. It's you can adjust one side, but the other side uh, takes on the weight. It's all like a balloon, a water balloon. You squish one side, this side gets big, this side gets small. It's the same amount of volume in there. And it's you need to talk with intelligent people and you need to explain how this works and that in this market you still need to pay the selling agent. NAR just made us reverse engineer it 3 steps, and the very same 3 steps we deal with at the time of an offer. This this broker is saying I have a buyer rep agreement and this is what it is, and my buyers and I are asking that the seller pay it. Then you're going 3 steps forward, and we're back to where we were, but maybe it's a little more transparent. So,
Yeah. I had a crazy story last weekend. Um, we had a listing we took live. It was like 1.35 in Happy Valley. Nice, very nice house. Great backyard, epic backyard. And this is a good story about the market. We ended up getting multiple offers and we went 100 grand over. Get this, true story. Seller who got 100 grand over on their offer, in our consultation with them about, accepting the offer, they said, should we push back on the commission?
oh, you're kidding.
They did not. They're very nice people, very reasonable. But they asked the question. They're like, well, should we push back on the commission? And we're like, well, you're getting 100 grand over.
Yeah.
It might be nice to treat that
Yeah.
agent fairly for what
Yeah.
the work they did to get this to where it's at.
You should have said yes. We should absolutely push back. I think I need a half a point more for doing such an amazing job
But
and
it
netting
just
you
goes
so
to
much.
show that you don't. I mean, sellers are wild cards out there, right? I mean, even in that amazing situation,
Right.
there was a little bit talk about the commission. So, but hey, and I guess in the spirit of this post, we are their advisors. Of course, if they had wanted to, we would have let them and we would have done what they wanted. But we advised them and we said, hey, this agent's done a really good job for you. They did all the right things. They got you what you wanted. They got you way more than what you were expecting. We should probably, reward them in this process and help them out here. So, hey, I'm going to do an audible here, Joe.
Sure.
One of the panel questions was about the NAR changes. Rather than
Yeah.
rather than talking about commission changes now and then coming back to that again, let's do that. So you had posted there was a real producers event about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, here in Lake Oswego at that big building downtown with the gorgeous views. What's it called? Ironworks or something like
Iron
that?
Horse or
Yeah,
Ironworks.
something like
Yes.
that. Gorgeous,
Yeah.
gorgeous venue. I was on a panel along with several other top agents in the area. I think everyone on the panel was a top 25 agent.
Iron Light, I think.
Iron Light.
Okay, whatever. Yeah.
Um,
Sorry.
a rock star panel was up there. I was a member of the panel, and we were all asked 4 questions. Well, you threw those 4 questions onto Masters after the panel, just to get some other people's take on it, and we were going to unpack a couple of those questions. Well, one of them that I'm going to transition to right now was NAR changes. It's been a year now. What's been the biggest challenges to deal with these changes, and what's been the most pleasant surprises from them? So we were kind of talking about the NAR commission changes here with this post. I'll kick it off. It ultimately, and I think the thread that you had here on Masters agreed with this. It's been a gigantic nothing burger.
Correct.
At worst, very little has changed. At best, I wonder if I think commissions are up in some cases, or we're definitely in more control of them for the good, solid agents doing good work with a good book of business who can explain their value. I think they're more in control than ever of their commissions, and I think a lot of us have actually seen an improvement in commissions on an average transaction. That's been high level the change. Now, one thing that was discussed on the panel that I spoke to, Terry Sprague was there as well, and he spoke to this, and he actually made a little bit of an observation in this regard that I agree with tremendously. He he said buyers have lost their spontaneity, which I agree, right? For many, many decades, a buyer could be in bed on a Sunday morning, not even in the market to buy a house, or maybe they're driving down the street and they see a sign, whatever the case. They're on their phone, they see something on Zillow, and they're like, wow, hadn't thought about moving until now, but that place looks cool. Let's go check it out. And a quick text to you or I, Joe, and we're meeting him at the house an hour, 2 or 3 later, right?
Yeah.
That was the spontaneity that the market had, right? Now there either needs to be an open house, which is a strong argument to have open houses, right? Because
Don't need a buyer rep. They just
that
show
would
up.
be the spontaneity that is allowed, right? In today's
Correct.
environment.
Yeah.
They could see, oh, there's an open house today. Let's go check it out. Okay. Argument to have open houses. Big argument. Even if people didn't like them before, they make sense to do now in a way that's new. But that aside, and not every house is meant to have an open house. I sell a lot of higher end homes where there's open houses aren't even a discussion we have, right? The seller wants nothing to do with it. They got a gated property. They're not holding that thing open. Then the spontaneity is just, it's squashed because now that seller calls you or I, Joe. We've got to talk to them about some paperwork. We got to send it over to them. They got to review it. Maybe there's a little back and forth on the terms or, what is it just for this house? Is it for 6 months? What is it? Right. And it's just, it's kind of a wet blanket on what used to be a really fun, spontaneous process. It almost becomes a little awkward. I mentioned this when I was on the panel. I said, in the past, that buyer would reach out to us, and sometimes we knew them and sometimes we didn't. Sometimes they're a past client and that's easier, but sometimes maybe, gosh, in years past I did Zillow, right? Or maybe they were a referral or something. And now you got to talk to them about a contract and they've never met you. And so now and in the past, we would meet at the house and it was really efficient because you go meet at the house, they get to know you at the house, you're showing it to them, you're getting to understand what they like about that house. Maybe you're talking about other houses that might be a good fit. So your consultation happened at the house. Now that you can't go to that house without a contract, where do you do your consultation? Do you do it on the phone? Do you do a Zoom? Do you go to a Starbucks? Do they come to your office? These are the challenges of that lack of spontaneity that has happened to our business. Kind of an
Nobody
interesting
loves
thought.
signing anything immediately. It's like, oh, hey, in order to show you this house, you need to sign this buyer rep agreement. I don't like signing stuff that I don't think about and I can't read it entirely. Um, you know, it was a big wet blanket, and you know what caused it? I think realtors were panicking about this change. And when okay, so like AI is prevalent now, and people are talking about, oh my God, they're not going to need realtors anymore. No, that's not the case. They will always need realtors. AI and all this stuff isn't going to replace us. And they had that same argument back with Zillow and the open door and all of those things. Hey, we're still here and we're still kicking. With this NAR commission suit, people love to what if it to death. And none of those scenarios came up. If anything, it's been holistically positive, um, as the commission side on for the listing agent and the commission for the selling agent. And I think for the most part, sellers and buyers are receptive to learning about it if you're willing to teach them. I just want everybody to teach them. So we're moving, you know, 3 steps forward. It's always difficult to me when I'm in a transaction with a broker that hasn't really been working on their knowledge base, because now I have to explain to them how the real estate market works before I can negotiate with them. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you just kind of hope everybody's there and you hope they're doing their job, telling their client what they need to know. So you don't have to like hold their hand, explain it to them before you could even try and negotiate and rationalize with them.
I don't mean to, along those lines, Joe. There's been a lot of positives with this. Now that it's
Yeah.
required that you be in contract with a buyer, I mean, buyers know that for the most part. And if they don't today, they're going to across the board very soon. Um, and so it's real easy to get the contract. It's real easy to have the conversation. Now, is it as easy as it used to be and spontaneous as it used to be? No, it's just different. And so we're getting into contracts faster. We're
Yeah.
protected faster. That's highly positive. It's just, there's a good and bad to it. There's a good and bad to it. And I thought that was an interesting conversation. Hey, let's move on. We're doing good on time, but we got to keep things moving.
Okay.
Let's go to Elisa Buckley again, and this one was the one about concessions in RMLS. Do you have that one in front of you, Joe?
Yeah. Elisa, we covered two of her posts, and they're both about RMLS restricting what we can post. I mean, it could be really one post, but
Maybe we should
she says,
put
I'm
her in a room
noticing.
with Kurt von Wasmuth and let him duke it out.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, RMLS has rules they have to follow. RMLS plays by the rules of NAR, and that is they have nothing to do with the listing contract like they used to. So we're not posting a BAC, as well as if you're willing to give concessions, you can't say a dollar amount. And she is putting a lot of importance on, as a listing agent and a seller, you can say that you will offer concessions, but you can't say, hey, we're going to offer $15,000 worth of concessions. And she's like, the buyers don't know. And it's like, well, guess what? There's a couple ways to handle this. First of all, you could lower the price, and if they really need closing costs or a rate buy down or something, you could always raise the price and build that in. That's number one. The more competitively priced you are, the more people you're going to attract. Secondly, if the selling agent, the one representing the buyer, is worth anything, you're going to call the listing agent and find out all the answers to the test before you take the test. Where are the sellers going? Do they need a rent back? Who's your escrow preference? What about this? What about this? Does the barbecue stay? Does the TV stay? They're going to want to have that either when they're showing it or about to write an offer. And that's where you say, yes, with the right price, we're willing to offer 15 grand towards something. I understand what RMLS has to do. I don't think it's a big enough deal because listing agent and selling agent should be in constant contact. From the day they first show the property, you want to check and make sure it's still available, right? Did it sell last night at 10 p.m. and it still shows as active? Check availability, find out all the things you can't read in the listing that you should know, and find out all the other stuff that you should know. And so uh, RMLS has their rules. You can't have branded, you can't brand yourself. You can't have people in the photos. You can't have words in the
And some
photos.
of these rules bug me, Joe. Some of these
No
rules bug me. I want to be
BAC, no concession amounts.
well,
It's not
some
an
of these rules
RMLS
are a
thing.
bit. Some of these rules, though, I have to say, we do a lot with our listings where we like to show nearby amenities, and that's not new. I didn't coin this. I didn't invent this. It's been happening for decades. You sell a house in first edition, or you're listing a house in first edition of Lake Oswego. You want to show, some of the great. You want to show Millennium Park, which I think technically you can show a public park, but you want to show Domain Serene. You want to show the Lake Tap House or whatever that place is called there that used to be Manzana's. You want to show some cool stuff that's nearby. Now those are getting flagged by AI every time, and you got to blur the names. And it seems excessive to me. I don't get it. I don't understand why you can show Millennium Park, but you can't show that business's name. Um,
I don't know
it's
either.
just a little overreaching. I think there's a little bit of overreaching being done by Armless. The good news is I know those guys are reasonable people. I think they just need to hear us rise up and agree on that. So, this is a different situation. This is talking about putting a concession and whatever. I don't know. I think you should just drop the price. We've endlessly debated this. I work with a good builder here in the area, Riverside Homes. I've got a big subdivision, and we've debated endlessly, even prior to this change, back before this change. What gets more traffic? Dropping the price or keeping the price the same and saying we'll give away 20,000 in the public comments? The reality is there's only one of those things that gets the most eyeballs, and it's the drop of the price.
Correct.
Now, I
Yep.
understand why builders don't want to do that. I do. And I
Correct.
support them because they're protecting their comps. They're going to sell more homes in that little area. Our individual resale sellers do not have that challenge. Unless they have two homes next to each other and they're selling both, which is very rare, they should not be worried about their comps. They should just drop the price. And if a buyer comes along if a buyer comes along and says, hey, I want 20 grand in closing costs so I can buy down the rate, then raise the price in the offer. Now go back in and have them write a higher offer than asking price. Obviously it's negotiable. I don't know how many days in market it has. Maybe it's at that
Right.
current price, but whatever. You have the mechanism, you can raise the price, but you'll never negotiate with a party that's not at the table. To get them at the table, lower the price, stop trying to do cute things with concessions and dollar amounts, because the eyeballs aren't getting on that. No one's reading
Yes.
those public comments. They all look at the price and that jumps at them in the searches.
And so, as a big RMLS advocate, RMLS is forced to play by the rules, and a lot of stuff they cut out is the cute stuff that people used to do. Um, you know, 15 grand towards buyers' closing costs or whatever. It's just sort of the new world we live in, and all of these rules were created for a reason.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, we've got two more panel questions and then we're out of here.
Okay.
Um, so first panel question, I'm going to let you kick this one off, Joe. Mindset shift. This was another question that we were asked on the panel that I was on a couple weeks ago. Let's begin with what's working behind the scenes. What's one strategy or mindset shift you've made in the last 12 months that's helped move the needle in your business? Do you have
So
any?
nothing outpaces hard work. And there's a lot of noise and traffic and distraction in our world. Like when this NAR stuff was going on and everybody like wanted to like talk about it ad nauseum and bitch about it, I was out listing and selling property. And so my mindset is whatever success is to you, whether you do it by units, I want to close 20 houses or 30 houses or 50 houses or 100 houses, or you do it by volume, I want to do 20 million or 30 million or 50 million or 100 million. Whatever success looks like to you, go get it. Go get your 20 closings. Go get your 20 million. Just go get it. Don't the people sitting back and complaining about the way we do things, keep doing that, please, because we are out selling homes to buyers and listing homes while you're complaining about stuff. My
Mm-hmm.
mindset is work hard and just get after what success looks like to you, work towards that. And that is 100% it. There's a little bit of a blend into the next question, which is be efficient. So with the mindset, we need to be more efficient. The more work you can do in a less amount of time allows you a couple things. You either have more free time or you have more time to make more money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so be efficient and go work doing the things that make you productive. Focus on those and go be productive. That's
Yep.
how about
What I
you?
said on what I said on the panel, the thing that's changed for me in the last 12 months, and it's kind of a different direction than you. I've always kind of what you just said is something that's like a baseline mindset that I've always had. I don't think that's new in the last 12 months for me. And to 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 agree with you that that's a great mindset to have. I think one thing that's changed for me in the last probably 12 months or maybe less is I think I'm done waiting for this market to get better.
Yeah.
I think we're on year 3 of this, and I think we've all been like, right around that corner, it's going to get better. Right around that corner, rates are going to be 5%. Right around, and it's exhausting waiting for it. It's exhausting waiting for it. It's depressing and disappointing constantly. So the analogy I used at the panel is like I'm no longer waiting for the storm to pass. I'm going to dance in the rain. Like let's just
Absolutely.
acknowledge that rates are going to be high for a while. Let's acknowledge that houses are going to be harder to sell than they were in the past for a while. And let's find the positives in that. And let's find the positives in the environment we're in. And if and when it does get better, great. But let's stop telling ourselves it's next month or or next quarter or next year because this could be a slog for a while. I just, and if it's not and I'm wrong, good, even better. By 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 not telling myself that it's happening, and when it happens, I'll be pleasantly surprised and thrilled. So that's been, I think, a little mindset
And
shift for
yeah, I
me.
appreciate you saying that because, when you asked me my mindset, I took 3 or 4 minutes to talk about that exactly without expressly saying I'm not going to wait for the market to get better. That's what I was basically saying. It's like
Yeah.
it is what it is. Move forward. Be good at what you do.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
yeah,
And we'll hopefully we're all pleasantly surprised if we stop. Maybe if how many times have you're waiting for something to happen and it takes forever to happen? Maybe let's just stop expecting it to happen, and who knows, maybe it'll happen faster.
yeah.
Last panel question we're going to talk about, and then we're done and we're out of here, Joe.
Okay.
Tech and AI tools. How are you integrating AI or other tech tools into your business, whether it's marketing, operations, or client communication? You want to kick that off?
Yeah. So, AI makes things convenient, but AI and tech tools does not 100% replace what we do. So, brokers using AI and tech tools, it will make them more efficient and it will make them more organized, but it doesn't replace what we do. So, people who use AI and tech will be better moving forward compared to those who don't use it at all. But this isn't like the holy grail that, oh, AI is here. All of a sudden, my listings are going to sell and my buyers are going to buy and the market's going to change. It enhances what we do already, and just we cut a little bit of corners is what we're doing. And I think that's really, I love it. And you see too many people using it at a low level. They put their remarks into chat gpt and then it gets dumped into the listing, and you always know because they use the word boasts and plethora. I don't know, but AI loves the word. This house boasts a fabulous setting with a plethora of windows, and it's just, you can tell something reeks of AI chat gpt verbiage. And it should make us better at what we do already by utilizing it. But if you suck at what you do, it's not really going to help you that much.
Yeah, I said that on the panel. Remember, Joe? I said no. I said let me preface everything I'm about to say with this: no okay agent is going to become great by using AI, and no great agent is just going to become okay if they are not using AI. Right?
Yeah.
It's an accelerator. It has a place. It can whatever you are, it can help you be more of that. It can help you
Yeah.
be more efficient, but it's not the silver bullet that suddenly you were struggling your entire career and now boom, you're a great agent and everything's good, or vice versa, right?
Yeah.
So, one thing I said on the panel is I am noticing, and it's been positive for me that I'm getting listing appointments where people are putting into chat gpt and other ai searches, if you will, of they're not really searches, but they're finding agents that way. I've had a few listing appointments recently where they said I put into chat gpt, agents doing the most business in Lake Oswego, Westland, whatever, and you came up as one of them. And it was interesting because I started playing with that myself, and sure enough, the AI is it is like a virtual assistant that is reading reviews, reading past sales. It summarizes like this agent does this. This person has sold this many houses in this market, this spanning this price range. So that is really interesting. It's impacting Google. Google's stock was down tremendously recently because I think the writing is on the wall that search is going to change, and it's been on for a while, the wall for a while, to be honest. But search is going to be different in the future. It's going to be AI that is scrubbing and reading and learning about people, us, and other products, and it's going to impact Google's ability to monetize that. Um,
So Google tells you where to get the information. AI tells you the answer. And
yeah,
there's a difference. You Google something and it's like, ooh, hey, look at these YouTube videos or look at any of these websites. AI just says, you wanted this, here you go.
yeah,
And
and
it
it's
is more
getting
efficient.
better. It's getting better all the time. It's getting
And
better all
some
the.
marketing
Yeah.
person is going to think of, a broker, AI, chat GPT, all these buzzwords. So when someone goes to AI to says, hey, I live here and I want a realtor, they're going to do something to boost you so AI recommends you in the future.
My hope would be, Joe, if I had a wish here, is that you can't manipulate it. Because I think search was manipulated a lot.
Yeah.
We would go into Google and we would put in who's the best realtor in Lake Oswego, and all these names you've never heard of in Lake Oswego. Some of it paid advertising, some of it just,
Yeah.
they understood all the back end tricks on how to say all the right things so their name, rose to the surface. And sometimes you had legitimate good agents
Yeah.
that fit the bill show up as well. My hope would be that AI actually is smart enough that it can read all the reviews out there of everybody. It can read, it can identify through Zillow's past sales, who's selling, and it can give valid answers that can't be manipulated. How great would that be for the consumer, first of all? Because then they're getting the real answers, not getting the smoke and mirror, who knew how to manipulate Google. And it's also good for the ones that deserve to be recognized because they do have the good reviews. They do have the past sales. So that would be my hope in that regards. Um,
As long as AI gets its information from the internet, it will be manipulated.
yeah,
It
I
has
agree.
to be.
I agree. I agree. I agree to some extent.
Years
But
ago,
hopefully it's
I did hyper local blogging, and there was a formula of, you repeat a phrase like every three sentences kind of throughout. There's a couple phrases you repeated like three times at the beginning and at the end. So when you do a Google search, it tags this post as great relevance, right? 90% relevance to what you're looking for. So even AI going from the internet, it's going to be manipulated content because we all put that content there.
Yep, yep. But and just to wrap up this conversation, because we got to jump, Joe. But we are using AI in my team. I agree with a lot of the posts and the comments here. Somebody, Joan Rogers, says she's not using it at all, and my clients notice it and they appreciate it. I think that's a little extreme, but you got to be careful on how you use it.
Yeah.
If it looks like it's AI, you screwed up. You're doing a terrible job of using it. You've got to
Right.
have human eyeballs at the very end, making it sound like you, making it sound like a human, making it using it the right way. We are using AI with our newsletter. We do a monthly newsletter to our client database. We're using a lot of AI there to help with articles. One of the cool things I love about AI is sometimes if you write something that's 1,000 words, it's really cool to put it into the AI. We've used Chat GPT. We also use a program called Writer,
Yeah.
WRITER. They're a startup. Um, you put it in there and you go make this 500 words,
Make me
and it's
smart.
really cool to see something that you wrote that was this big get shrunk down to this big, and you're like, I didn't lose much. That's
Right.
awesome. That's a cool use of AI
Using more descriptive words and less
is to
words.
tighten up your
I
verbiage.
love it.
Tighten up
I
your
subscribe
verbiage.
to Grammarly that does that for me.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, no, that was awesome. That was it, Joe. I think we had a great show. I
I
think we
do
had a great
too. This
show.
is probably my favorite one. We covered a lot of stuff and it didn't take us it wasn't an 8 hour podcast, which is
It was
unusual
not.
for
We had
us.
some great comments, and thank all our people that were watching live. There was dozens of you, and we will get this. It's up on Masters. It's on our both our walls. We'll get it out as a podcast probably early next week. Everyone have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend, and You too, Joe.
Like and subscribe, people.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Hang on. I'm going to kill the recording, then kill the live feed. Thanks, everybody. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Portland Real Estate Podcast, Oregon and Washington's #1 show for cutting-edge real estate discussions. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to the members of Masters in Real Estate, a private and exclusive Facebook group, and the #1 source for all real estate topics. Thanks for being there, gang. I love you. Finally, I want to thank our faithful listeners. Without an audience, we're just two guys talking to each other. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so the new episodes automatically come to you. Make it great.